Michael McGlynn, very, very nice to see you. Looking very well indeed. Is that a surfboard I can see in the
Yes,
background?
that's been there since August
Okay.
because I'm an avid surfer, even though I do tend to be the oldest person on the beach. When I'm doing it, I'm still there, I'm still flying the flag.
You know, it's a sport have played a lot of sports in my life, but surfing, the only time we've ever surfed is I think when the group was in Korea, we went for a surfing lesson one day that we had off.
It's magic. I
And
can highly recommend it.
I'm sure if you can stand up on the board, it's great.
Indeed it is.
No, Michael, look, thank you so much for joining us in this Live from London Christmas venture. I'm sure many people know Anúna and have enjoyed your music for many years. Tell us a little bit about what you're bringing to this specific festival.
Well, we've had I suppose, the advantage of having seen what you guys have done. And may I congratulate you on the Extraordinary Summer Festival,
Oh, thank
which I think is quite revolutionary because what you've done is you've made something that was in some ways rarefied. A lot of the groups that have been featured are extremely specific in their remit. They are aimed at an audience interested in early music. But of course, early music to me is the same as pop music. And I'm delighted that you've brought so many groups who people just haven't heard of together. And I think that from our point of view, we're bringing something very different because despite the fact that we're very well known, a lot of people know the name and they'd know some of the associations, but they would never have seen the group.
Yeah.
So what we're going to try and do is give you a flavor of what makes Anúna quite unique to other vocal ensembles. And it's, how'd you put it? It's, oh God, it's so awful, but it can be very haunting without the death.
So, I mean, talk to us a little bit, because I know you write or arrange a lot of the music yourself. So what would you describe as the influences for your writing and programming?
Well, that's a great question. You see, when I set up Anúna, it was originally set up because I was obsessed with early music and I was a contemporary music composer. And being quite blunt about it, I wasn't being inundated with offers to have my works performed in Ireland because at the time that I set Anúna up, it was not really seen as something that you did. We reached out to English choral music or to Hungarian choral music, but I wanted to create something that would create a choral voice for Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back in my inspiration to our indigenous form of singing, which is called Sean-nós, which is part of the traditional realm. And then I added things which I borrowed from other cultures, including British choral tradition, because of course, there's so much innovation has occurred over the last 800 years. So you get a lot of medieval type drones, but you'll also get things which are definitively and decidedly contemporary in origin. So Anúna, although it looks old, is very new.
Yeah.
And it is very much on its own. It's not belonged to any school of choral music in Ireland. And in fact, we rarely perform here. It's a very unusual thing to see the group at home.
Okay, that's curious. So where would you say most of your live, under normal circumstances, of course, where does the group mostly perform live?
Well, I suppose I could tell you the places we won't be this year. So we won't be in Belgium or the Netherlands, and we won't be in Japan, and we just weren't in China. Although our biggest audience is in America, where I met you first, actually.
Mm-hmm.
We never toured there. We haven't toured there since 2007, though
Really?
we did do 40 dates. So it actually, Anúna is so unusual. It has a different color in each place it tours. In Japan, it's seen as healing music.
Mm-hmm.
In the Netherlands, we perform mainly in theaters, which means that we're more populist in nature. But then when we go to other countries, Sweden or Germany or Finland or wherever, we're decidedly classical in the way we perform, because we can perform in a theater, or we can perform in the NCPA in Beijing with no microphones, which is a 1900 seater, a 2000 seater. So we're a classical group that's not a classical group. We're quite on our own.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, I'm sure it's the monkey that you can't get off your back. But for people who haven't come across the group, of course, the association for which I think you referred to earlier was Riverdance. Is that correct? You were involved.
Riverdance was very interesting. Riverdance was a symptom of Ireland in the early part of the 1990s. It was we were in resurgence. It was the first time there was this incredible sense of national pride in our language, in our music, which was catapulted onto the world stage. So to be part of that was wonderful, but we left it a year and a half later, and we've had nothing to do with it since. Okay. But you can't underestimate power of that resonance, and I'll always be very grateful to it. But Anúna has managed to create its own spectacularly unique niche, and I'll never forget what we owe to it. But we also have a lot of connection with video games as well, and we've done a lot of video game soundtracks too, and that's had an influence in a different way. So we're everywhere and nowhere, if you know what I mean.
Well, absolutely thrilled that we're going to get to meet the real Anúna now, the here and now in this festival. Well, two questions. Well, one question really to finish, which is, I think for me, certainly my perception of Anúna is a large part of it is you as a composer and arranger. So if you could point our audience to a track that they could go to Spotify or iTunes or whatever and stream this afternoon, what track would you encourage people to go and hear?
Well, it wouldn't be one that I'd been known best for, at least in this neck of the woods, but the one which sort of epitomizes a lot of the ideas that Anúna stands for would be the Agnus Dei, which I wrote for Chanticleer, for their Chanticleer Mass. And that is kind of a strange hybrid. It's a mixture of very medieval sounding drones, and there's a bit of Irish language there, and it's got a big tune in there. It's got a big melody. And I think if you're going to define my work, I write songs, I write melodies, and I just use choirs as my instrument. So
okay, there we go. So I'm sure many choral directors listening, and something that I always look for in a VOCES8 commission is a melody, because
an old tune is the best thing, isn't it?
It's an important part of music, in my humble opinion.
We actually, strangely enough, it was my colleague Ola, who you've worked with. He's very much somebody who loves the idea of pictorial representation, and he said, you're the melodist, but he said it's based really on your tradition. And I suppose I can't get away from that, because intrinsically that's what I am. And sure, doesn't the water itself contain melodies in Ireland, as they say?
Indeed. There you go. We'll leave people with that thought. And to send you on your merry way today, I think we're going to play Gaudete, which is this an arrangement of yours?
It is. And it's sung by Sam Crichton-Weiss. I'm afraid my arrangements are always a bit left of center, because I can't really distinguish between Lady Gaga and medieval music, because as far as I'm concerned, David Bowie, Sex Pistols, they're all the same, It's all music.
We'll enjoy the influences then. So, Michael, hugely looking forward to your concert with Anúna. Thank you so much for joining us today. And here is Gaudete.
Gaudete, gaudete, Christus est natus, ex Maria Virgine, gaudete, 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 Christus est natus, ex Maria Virgine, gaudete. Tempus ares gratiae, hoc quod aptabamus, carmina laetitiae, devotere damus. Gaudete, gaudete, Christus est natus, ex Maria Virgine, gaudete, 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 Christus est natus, ex Maria Virgine, gaudete. Deus homo factus est, natura mirante, mundus renovatus est, a Christo regnante. Gaudete, gaudete, Christus est natus, ex Maria Virgine, ex Maria Virgine gaudete.
Ezechelis porta clausa per transitor, unde lux est orta salus invenitur.
Gaudete, gaudete, Christus est natus, ex Maria Virgine gaudete. Gaudete, gaudete, Christus est natus, ex Maria Virgine gaudete.
Ergo nostro conscius salatiam in nostro, benedicat Domino salus Regi nostro.
Gaudete, gaudete, Christus est natus, ex Maria Virgine gaudete. Gaudete, gaudete, Christus est natus, ex Maria